Yeah. Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. I'm a headliner.
What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there today. We're talking about some quarterbacks that we're going to start and sit for Week 4 fantasy football. And you know what? We're not wasting any time. Hit the like button because we're getting right into it. Before we get into this week's matchups, though, how did we do in Week 3? Well, let's take a look here at our accuracy report. And out of the 32 quarterbacks that we gave a start or sit designation to just last week, 23 of them were correct for an accuracy percentage of 72%. Some of our biggest misses, Taylor Heinicke of the Washington football team continues to impress, right? Kind of makes me wonder, what would this offense be with Ryan Fitzmagic? Could be some big numbers as well. Jacoby Brissett playing well for Miami. Trevor Lawrence continues to throw the ball to the wrong team. Therefore, he was a miss for me this past week. Some of the biggest hits, Sam Darnold. Who is on the Sam Darnold bandwagon? I feel like I've been alone on this thing for months. Maybe a few stragglers here and there, but come on, hop on the Darnold bandwagon. Joe Burrow, super efficient last week, and then Ryan Tannehill had himself the bounce back game that a lot of people have been waiting for. But that was Week 3, right? And we're getting ready to narrow down into Week 4, but September is almost over. It's literally just a couple days away. You only have a couple days to enter into our huge September giveaway. We're giving away an autographed Justin Jefferson jersey, a Manscaped Perfect Package 4.0, and a Trevor Lawrence rookie card, a total package valued at over $250. All you need to do, head over to prizepicks.com or download the app. Create a new account and use the referral code HEADLINERS when you do so. You'll make your initial $20 deposit, but heck, we'll match your deposit up to $100 total dollars, plus get you entered in to this giveaway. It's ending end of September, so get in there now before it's too late. But now is the time that we need to head into Week 4. What are some of the good matchups? What are some of the bad matchups? Taking a look at the quarterbacks, and we're starting off on Thursday Night Football with the Jacksonville Jaguars and Cincinnati Bengals. And I mentioned Trevor Lawrence when we were just looking at the accuracy report right now. I'm a little bit worried, so I'm going to pay close attention here. No, real talk. Trevor, dude, blink twice if you're in trouble. Just go. Because I'm starting to worry a little bit. Are all these turnovers his way of saying, hey, I want to throw the ball to someone else. I don't want to be in Jacksonville. Now, probably not, but it's starting to get concerning at this point because he has 9 turnovers in his first 3 games, 7 of which are interceptions. He only had 17 total interceptions in college. So does the switch just flip and do they all of a sudden just magically disappear? No. It's a learning curve, and now a matchup going up against Cincinnati, who is no slouch, is not exactly ideal. They only allow right around 16 fantasy points per game, and with all the turnovers we've been seeing, it's too risky of a start. Got to sit Trevor Lawrence. As for Joe Burrow on the other side of things, he's really bounced back from Week 2, right? Super efficient there in Week 3. He turned only 18 pass attempts into 22 fantasy points. That's huge. And he did it without T. Higgins. Now, does T. Higgins come back this week? It's something to maybe pay attention to, but he's got more than enough firepower in that offense to continue to put up solid numbers on a weekly basis. What this really tells me, though, is he doesn't need huge volume. He doesn't need 50 pass attempts to go out there and get you a good fantasy day. He can go out there and get you 20 to 25, and you could be pleasantly surprised knowing that Jacksonville gives up over 20 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. We're starting Joey B this week, which will then take us into Sunday football, the Washington football team against the Atlanta Falcons. And here we have ourselves a little bit of a conundrum, word of the day, by the way. The Atlanta offense, not that great, kind of trending down, right? The Washington defense, also kind of trending down, been a little bit of a disappointment. The Washington football team allows 27 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. That is the most in the NFL. But Matt Ryan is currently quarterback 25 on the season. Now, he had his best game just this past week in Week 3, right? But he's yet to have a game without a turnover. He's got 5 of them already here on the season. Plus, he's really struggling to include the likes of Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts on a consistent basis. His floor, fairly safe, but the ceiling, super limited. He's just not a top 12 option right now. They need to get Calvin Ridley going. They need to get Kyle Pitts going. And in a game against the Washington football team, which on paper should be pretty good. We just never know when this defense is actually going to click and get a little bit better. I'm not willing to tempt it with Matt Ryan here this week. He's going to be a sit. As for Taylor Heinicke, this dude needs some more credit. He's borderline top 12 over the last 2 weeks of fantasy football. He's got 5 touchdowns in just the last 2 games alone. His ability to scramble is a positive. The matchup against the Atlanta Falcons is a positive because they allow right around 25 fantasy points per game, which is 4th most in the NFL. And he has the weapons needed to put up big numbers. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm heading over to Prize Picks. I'm finding myself some Taylor Heinicke, and he is set at currently 242.5 passing yards, and I'm smashing the over because I definitely think he can take advantage of this Atlanta defense and be a solid start here in week 4. On to Houston and Buffalo now, and poor Davis Mills, right? I mean, first he had to deal with the Cleveland Browns, and then the Carolina Panthers, and now he gets the Buffalo Bills. And I'm sure there's not a lot of people out there, chomping at the bit to start Davis Mills in fantasy football, especially against Buffalo, who only allows right around 14 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. His ceiling is already low. There's no running game there, and it's a super tough matchup. We do get questions on a daily basis, maybe even a weekly basis. Hey, how can you like Brandon Cooks, but you don't like Davis Mills? Easy. Brandon Cooks can have a good day and really perform for your fantasy team. That doesn't mean Davis Mills is automatically going to be a great start as well. Are you happy if your wide receiver goes out and gets 125 and a touchdown? I'm sure you are. Are you happy if your quarterback goes out and gets 150 for 1 touchdown and interception? I'm sure you're not. And that's exactly how that plays out. So Davis Mills, my bad, dude, but you're going to stay in the sit column. As for Josh Allen in Buffalo, you never, ever, ever, ever sit Josh Allen. A great matchup for him. Right now, Josh Allen himself is averaging right around 24 fantasy points per game, and Houston allows 22. A match made in heaven. Another great day for Josh Allen incoming. He's got so many weapons to utilize on a weekly basis. A great start for him here in week 4. Over to Detroit and Chicago now, and at this point, we don't know who's going to start for the Chicago Bears. I mean, regardless, though, I'm probably not going to start any of these guys. I mean, what is Matt Nagy doing, saying that he's not even ruling out Nick Foles or Andy Dalton or Justin Fields as a potential starter this week? That makes no sense, especially since your offense looks like hot garbage anyway. Find a guy, commit to him, build your offense around him, and try to win some freaking football games. It's not rocket science. This offense is a complete mess, and I'm totally blaming Matt Nagy at this point. Now, Detroit, they allow 22 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks, but who's it going to be? You have no idea, and the way things are looking, until I get more clarity, I'm sitting all of these guys. For Detroit, they live and die by the pass. They're going to throw the ball a lot. And Chicago allows right around 18 fantasy points per game. And Goff, honestly, hasn't been that bad. He's actually been a lot better than I thought he was going to be entering this season. He just has a lack of playmakers. Now, they're starting to utilize DeAndre Swift a lot more out of the backfield, which is great. But that really relies on Jared Goff being more big play dependent to find the end zone consistently. They're just not scoring enough to get his ceiling high enough for me to want to start him. He's not a bad start on a weekly basis, but the floor is super low and the ceiling is already capped, and I'm not willing to risk it here this week with Jared Goff. He's staying in the sit column. On to Carolina and Dallas now, and are more people out there believing in Sam Darnold yet? I mean, because you need to be. He's currently quarterback 12 overall in fantasy football, 6 touchdowns to only 2 turnovers so far this season. And now there's no Christian McCaffrey. It is easier to throw on Dallas than it is to run on Dallas because they're allowing 23 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. Plus, we could be in line for more throwing volume for Sam Darnold with no running game. Not taking anything away from Chuba Hubbard or Royce Freeman, but sorry, they're not Christian McCaffrey. I'm fine with more passing volume because he's already shown he can take care of the ball, find receivers down the field, and make some big plays happen. I'm actually going to start Sam Darnold this week against the Dallas Cowboys. As for Dak, though, tough matchup going up against Carolina. They allow only 14 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks, plus Amari Cooper. He's not 100%, still no Michael Gallup, but does Tony Pollard step up? Didn't have a huge role this past week because he didn't really need it, right? They hopped out to a lead against Philadelphia and didn't need to involve him very much in the passing game. That's why we saw more Ezekiel Elliott. Now, Dak's ceiling, going to be a little bit lower, but look for the tight ends once again to help pick up the slack. Plus, we're hoping that Zeke can continue to run like he did 2 or 3 years ago. He's too good of a quarterback to sit as Dak Prescott. You're going to go ahead and start him. You're just going to temper expectations because this is a very difficult matchup. Now we go to Indianapolis and Miami, and this is interesting here, right? Jacoby Brissett with the Miami Dolphins going back to Indianapolis, who he has played with over the last 4 seasons, and he didn't play half bad in Indianapolis as well. Now he's in Miami. playing for an injured Tua, and he's got a lot more weapons at his disposal, right? Going up against the Colts seems like a difficult matchup, but they're allowing 23 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. That's 8th most in the NFL. And we've seen Brissett go out there and have huge volume. He's had at least 40 pass attempts now in back-to-back games. You add in the fact that he's got Devontae Parker, Jalen Waddle, hopefully Will Fuller if he's not already injured, Mike Gesicki, Myles Gaskin in the backfield, plus the ability to go out there and kind of have an understanding of what your opponent is going to do. He's got volume, he's got weapons, he's got a matchup. I'm going to start him, and I'm heading over to Prize Picks to really take advantage of him right now, because right now his over-under is set at 220.5 passing yards. I'm going to go over there, and I'm smashing the over on Jacoby Brissett. As for Indianapolis, I want to trust Carson Wentz. I don't think he's as bad as a lot of people think he is, but he's not 100% healthy. He's not mobile right now. He's got limited weapons at his disposal. He's lost starting all-pro guard Quentin Nelson, which is a huge loss to that offensive line, and Miami only allows on average 18 fantasy points per game. Too risky of a start for me this week. Got to sit Carson Wentz. Over to the Browns and the Minnesota Vikings now, and Kirk Cousins just continues to go out and produce weekly, all the way up to quarterback 6 overall right now in fantasy football, and he's basically almost matchup proof right now. Now, Cleveland allows right around 20 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks, and Kirk Cousins has yet to have a turnover on the season, averaging just over 244 yards a game and 2 touchdowns a week in 3 straight. Yeah, he's playing pretty good. What is a reason for that added ceiling? KJ Osborne is really helping out, along with tight end Tyler Conklin, really giving them other options in this offense, not named Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. By those other guys being efficient and productive, that's helping Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen find the end zone and the big plays. That's why I'm going to go ahead and continue to start Kirk Cousins. As for Baker, he's not playing bad at all. Having Odell Beckham back helps. He really needs Jarvis Landry back as well. This is just a team that's not reliant on having to throw the ball every week to win. They eat up so much time of possession on the ground, it limits the throwing opportunities for Baker Mayfield to really give you that ceiling play on a weekly basis. Now, Minnesota allows right around 23 fantasy points per game, but in my opinion, Baker is just too safe of a start. The floor, solid. The ceiling is just too limited, and he's somebody that I can't start here in week 4 fantasy football. Over to the New York Giants and New Orleans Saints, and had Daniel Jones actually had the entirety of his weapons for the whole game in week 3, he could have crushed it, right? But he lost both Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton in the first half, plus we know Kenny Golladay entered the game already banged up. Now, it's great to have Saquon Barkley back, but what's going to happen going forward? Do we see a little bit more of the rushing upside from Daniel Jones because they have limited weapons on the outside? Possibly. But this is a super tough matchup going up against the New Orleans Saints, who are number 3 in the NFL against opposing quarterbacks, allowing only 12 fantasy points per game. Now, until the weapons are healed on the outside, until he's got more at his disposal, it's super hard to sit back here and start Daniel Jones, especially in a difficult matchup like this. He's going to be a sit. Now, for New Orleans, Week 1, Jameis is no longer, right? He's only had 2 touchdowns passing over the last 2 games combined. He's yet to throw over 22 pass attempts in a game and is still turning the ball over. Now we're seeing huge volume on the ground with Alvin Kamara, which is something we haven't really seen consistently over the last few years. But a matchup against the Giants isn't all that bad. They do allow right around 19 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks, but this play is just too inconsistent. And now we're starting to see a little bit more of Taysom Hill. Sure, not so much as a quarterback. He's getting more rushing attempts, but he's still somebody who could start seeing the field a little bit more and a little bit more, especially if we see more and more inconsistency from Jameis Winston, so he's going to be a sit. Over the Titans and the Jets, and last week, no A.J. Brown. A banged up Julio Jones, no problem. Ryan Tannehill's still going to go out there and be super efficient and throw some touchdowns to some guys you've probably never even heard of. And how does that happen? Well, we talked about it last week with the running game of Derrick Henry. When they really utilize Henry on the ground, it opens up the passing game in Tennessee. That is the key to this offense. The players' names on the outside, sure, I would love to have A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. But honestly, Ryan Tannehill can make things happen with lesser talent on the outside because of the way the running game opens up the passing game for the Tennessee Titans. It allows more single coverage on the outside because they have to put more defenders in the box. Now, surprisingly, the Jets are actually pretty good against opposing quarterbacks. They only allow 12.8 fantasy points per game. That's second fewest in the NFL. I had to check it twice because it's the Jets. I wasn't expecting them to be ranked that high in anything in the NFL, but actually they do pretty well. And it's got to be because they give so many extra possessions to their opponents because they're constantly turning it over on offense. So as for Ryan Tannehill here this week, he's going to remain in the start column. For Zach Wilson, no. 7 interceptions in the last 3 games and a completion percentage right around 55%. The rushing upside isn't there. Plus, he's been sacked 15 times in the first 3 games. No, he's staying in the sit column. Over to Kansas City and Philadelphia now, and is it crazy that Patrick Mahomes is having a down year, I guess you could say, but yet he's still quarterback 3 overall with 3 passing touchdowns in 3 straight games? Yeah, a little bit crazy, right? Plus, now, does he have Josh Gordon? Doesn't matter. Is Josh Gordon even a thing? I don't think so. I don't think he's some all-pro wide receiver that they're getting, but if he can go out there and be somewhat of a factor just to draw a little bit of defensive attention away from the likes of Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce, it can only help. Now, we saw the Dallas tight ends absolutely go out here and kill the Philadelphia defense. Expect a lot of the same with Travis Kelce here this week. You never sit Patrick Mahomes and wouldn't be surprised if he finds the end zone another 3 times this weekend. As for Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles, man, this guy needs to stay in an up-tempo offense. If you watched Monday Night Football, you can really see when they ran the no huddle, he was so much more efficient because he wasn't having to think as much. It was quick, it was reactionary, and that's where he really excels. They need to continue to do that at more times throughout the game. But Kansas City allows 26 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks, second most in the NFL. We already know that he's going to call his own number and run at times, plus opens himself up for that rushing ability to get in the end zone there as well. It's going to be some garbage time points maybe this weekend, but I'll take it and start Jalen Hurts. Now we go to Arizona and the Los Angeles Rams, my Manscaped matchup of the week. And just a reminder, as soon as this video is over, head over to manscaped.com, get yourself something nice for your travel bag, fellas, and make sure you use the code HEADLINERS when you check out. 20% off your order and free shipping. Don't wait any longer. Get your stuff now because this is going to be a super fun game to watch, right? You have Kyler versus Stafford. Weapons all over the field. 2 3-0 teams. Interdivisional matchup. Going to be a lot of fun. I will not be surprised if the running game is just thrown out the window in this matchup between these 2 high-powered offenses. Both teams allow just around 20 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks, and it doesn't matter who it is. One of these teams is probably going to be playing catch-up at some point. It's going to be a lot of back-and-forth matchups, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what Kyler Murray and Matthew Stafford can do in this high-profile matchup here this week. Now we go over to the other matchup in the NFC West, the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers. And is it just me, or does it seem like we're seeing big plays all the time in Seattle? Yet you look it up, and Russell Wilson is only quarterback 11 overall. The touchdowns have continued to go down now over the last 3 weeks. Now, am I worried about that? Not really, because of the likes of a Tyler Lockett who escaped injury, and DK Metcalf can make big plays happen in the blink of an eye. Now, San Francisco allows right around 23 fantasy points per game, a good matchup, because that's 7th most in the NFL. You're going to start Russell Wilson. As for San Francisco, I actually like Jimmy G this week. I mean, you got Deebo Samuel, George Kittle. Now, all of a sudden, Brandon Ayuk out of the doghouse. They're really lacking a run game because nobody's really healthy or efficient in the backfield right this second. And Seattle allows right around 19 fantasy points per game. A back and forth matchup here between some big plays on both sides. I could see it happening against Seattle. I'm going to start Jimmy G. Ravens and Broncos now, and this is what you would call not ideal for Lamar Jackson. Denver, the number 1 defense against opposing quarterbacks in the NFL, allowing only 11 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. But what's encouraging here is the missed plays from last week. No, the missed plays themselves were not encouraging. However, the delivery of the passes by Lamar Jackson were. And I don't expect Hollywood Brown to drop 3 huge touchdowns on a weekly basis. The ability to connect is going to happen, and that's going to raise the ceiling of Lamar Jackson. He's already trying to do so much on his own, and his feet only help him on a weekly basis. You can't afford to sit him. You're hoping for that rushing upside. Very tough matchup for him this week, though, going up against the Denver Broncos. For Teddy Two Gloves and the Broncos, dude is like the model of efficiency right now. He's completing 76% of his passes. Now, Baltimore, they allow right around 20 fantasy points per game. And Teddy B's got what you would call a very safe floor, a generous floor on a weekly basis with Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, Noah Fant. He did lose KJ Hamler, but that's not somebody he was overutilizing anyway. Plus, the pass catching upside of his backs in the backfield gives him that safe floor on a weekly basis. It's a tough matchup, but I'm starting Teddy Two Gloves here in week 4. Now we go to Pittsburgh and Green Bay, the battle of two old farts that are still playing quarterback, one playing way better than the other. What has happened to Big Ben? He's out there in the backfield by himself, tripping over his own 2 feet. Now, he's only had 1 passing touchdown in each of his last 3 games. Juju, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, they're all kind of banged up right now. But Ben, he usually plays better at home. Too bad, not at home. He's in Green Bay. Now, Green Bay does allow right around 23 fantasy points per game, but this is just way too risky. Some bad play by Big Ben, some banged up weapons on the outside. I see a whole lot of Najee Harris, so I'm going to sit Big Ben. As for Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers, the confidence is back. He has 6 touchdowns, no turnovers over his last 2 games, completing 75% of his passes, and is finding a way to get more than just Devontae Adams involved, plus Aaron Jones playing absolutely crazy. Of course, we're starting Aaron Rodgers here this week. Now we go to the matchup a lot of people are waiting for, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and New England Patriots. Oh, baby, Tom Brady back in Foxborough to face off against the New England Patriots. And he wants to go out there and just tell them all to suck it. That's what he really wants to do, right? You add in the fact that they're coming off of a loss. Now you got a pissed off Tom Brady coming into this game against his old team. Plus, does he have Antonio Brown back? Former Patriot. He's got Gronk. Is Gronk 100% healthy? Former Patriot. This could turn ugly really quick for the New England Patriots. I don't even want to talk about Mac Jones right now. Everything we're talking about right here is Tom Brady, because I am looking for him to come out and put up a big number. Not expecting a whole lot of work in the running game unless they're throwing to their backs out of the backfield. Tom wants to go up there and put a hurting on New England. Trust me, that's what he is really looking forward to. Now, we know Bill Belichick and the Patriots are no pushover, right? This is a solid defense, but in this matchup with this game, with his weapons, of 100%, I'm starting Tom Brady. As for Mac Jones, I probably wouldn't start him regularly, right? Much less dealing with all this extra added drama. Feel bad for the kid in this game because Tampa Bay's bringing their A game and going to try to put a whooping on the Patriots. Which takes us to Monday Night Football, Las Vegas Raiders, Los Angeles Chargers, and anybody else getting this like Dak Prescott 2020 vibe from Derek Carr. I mean, a ton of throwing volume on a weekly basis. As of right now, Derek Carr leading the NFL in passing yards. That's crazy to think about it coming into the season with him not really having a ton of weapons at his disposal, but he hasn't scored less than 25 fantasy points in a matchup yet. However, this is the toughest matchup he's faced so far this year. The Chargers allow only 15 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks, but I got to give this guy some credit. He's making things happen with very few weapons around him. I'm going to start Derek Carr against the Los Angeles Chargers here Monday Night Football. As for the Chargers and Herbie, or Herbert, if you're feeling fancy, I told you not to worry, right? And last week is exactly why. A huge week 3, 281 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. I'm telling you, Mike Williams is the key to raising the ceiling on a weekly basis for Justin Herbert, and he is playing absolutely well. Keenan Allen, really safe underneath, right? The big plays to Mike Williams is what's taking it to the next level. And plus, we can't forget about the ability of Austin Eckler, who's got all 15 of his targets so far this season. You can't sit Justin Herbert. Looking for a good game on Monday Night Football. All right, so those are my starts and sits for the quarterback position here, week 4 fantasy football. Hopefully I was able to help you out here just a little bit. Just a reminder, though, get into that giveaway now on Prize Picks. Head over there, create yourself a new account. There's a link down below in the description. Use that promo code Headliners when you sign up and make that initial deposit. We'll match your deposit and put you into the entry for the giveaway of the Justin Jefferson jersey, the Manscaped Perfect Package, and the Trevor Lawrence rookie card. Looking forward to giving that away. But for now, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe if you're not already, and hopefully you can have a great rest of your week. We'll talk to you later.